Good afternoon, KFGO time 2:05, and it is a Tuesday afternoon. I hope it's treating you well wherever you got us locked into 790 AM or 104.7 FM. KFGO, I'm Tyler Axness, your host. Eric Johnson, our producer. We're going to be with you until that 5 o'clock punch out today. A couple of items that we're going to be discussing with you. You can join the conversation all day at 237-5948. That's the Laney studio line. Also, 35270 is our text club. Going to start off talking about a story that broke last week about Mayville State employees getting overpaid, according to the university, and then now being asked to repay what they were overpaid. And this appears to be a little while in the making. So this wasn't, a big lump sum just came in to where people maybe noticed right away. So we're going to talk about what the legalese behind that are, especially on the employee side. If you're being asked in this situation to pay back, you didn't know, and it's just, there's a lot of questions I've got. So we're going to start there, but also the big news of the day is about President Biden and the administration saying that they're going to access and activating 50 million barrels of crude from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. And they're saying, look, this is going to hopefully help lower that gas price when you're filling up at the pump. We're going to talk to Heidi Heitkamp, former U.S. Senator, about that. Last week on ABC Sunday morning show, she was talking about doing this very thing, so I'll ask her about that and take your thoughts as well. All that and more coming up right after this KFGO News.
KFGO News, it is mostly sunny and 46. I'm Paul Juergens. Governor Burgum criticizing President Biden after the president announced that the Department of Energy will release 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help lower gas prices and improve supply-demand issues. Burgum says the decision is baffling. He says executive actions taken by the administration have done nothing but put up roadblocks to the domestic oil industry to recover to pre-pandemic levels. The top Republican in the Minnesota Senate says he is willing to postpone a debate over the confirmation of Health Commissioner Jan Malcolm to help break the stalemate over a special session. Majority Leader Jeremy Miller says if Democrats agree to Republican proposals on coronavirus, he would drop threats to remove Malcolm. Republicans have been critical of Governor Walz's emergency powers and public health restrictions and believe getting rid of Malcolm would send a message. The State Patrol says a St. Paul man was the person killed in a car pickup collision near Thief River Falls early yesterday morning on Highway 59. Killed was 40-year-old Sean Valentine. Valentine was driving a small car when he crossed the center line and crashed into the pickup driven by 73-year-old Glenn Struthers of Red Lake Falls, who was hurt. Linda Struthers, a passenger in the pickup, was also injured. Both were taken to Sanford Medical Center in Thief River Falls. There will be extra law enforcement once again this holiday season in Minnesota looking for impaired drivers. Amanda Albrecht is recounting how her family's life changed since Thanksgiving 2006 when her sister was killed after driving drunk.
Briana made one mistake that costed her her life. A couple months ago, for the first time in 15 years, I was mad at her for the ongoing pain my family goes through.
Briana Albrecht was weeks shy of her 20th birthday when she was killed in a drunken driving crash near Lake Elmo. She was going around 100 miles an hour, not wearing her seatbelt, and texting at the time. KFGO Weather Center forecast, partly to mostly sunny this afternoon, a strong south wind, 10 to 26, and we should be close to 50 for a high, 27 overnight, increasing cloudiness. Tomorrow, cloudy, windy, near 30, a morning high, and then steadier falling temperatures. There could be some scattered flurries. 22, Thursday, mostly sunny. Friday, partly sunny, 38. Saturday, Sunday, partly sunny for the weekend. The highs 38 to 43. Fargo-Moorhead, 46 degrees. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
Let's start off a Tuesday show talking a little money, should we? I don't know, and a little money's not fair. We're talking to the tune of over $150,000. There was reports coming out just the other week. This is Afternoons Live, by the way. I'm Tyler Axness. Thanks for keeping it locked into KFGO. Of over $150,000 that were dubbed overpayments from Mayville State University to some employees. Now they're being asked to pay back those accidental overpayments. And when you have all the back and forth between an employer and employee, and these are state institutions and state individuals, how does this all work out? And there's one person that comes to mind, Ross Nielsen, joining us right now with the Nielsen brand. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing okay, better than probably some of these employees getting
right.
letters in the mail saying, look, our bad, but now we need you to pay back what we accidentally overpaid. How common is this?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, that, like you said, the one element here that is a little bit different than a private employer is you got a state agency,
right?
Which means it's tax dollars. But as myself, we have a law firm and a private employer, and I can't imagine, all of a sudden discovering that you overpaid an employee, and then what do? Do you eat that cost, and how much is it going to be? And here, $150,000 or whatever. I don't think it's really common, but the one thing that came to mind here for me was in reading this story was everybody has direct deposit now. When was the last time you looked at your paycheck?
I think that's fair. To where instead of getting the physical check in the mail, to where you look probably at if you would notice hey, there's a few more bucks this one than there was last month. You're right. I mean, you have it automatically deposited, and then you just make sure it was deposited is probably about the extent of what you go. And that's probably a stretch for some people as well.
Yeah. And I think, if you physically got the check and had to go in the bank and actually look at what your taxes were,
right,
maybe this would have come to light. But I was just thinking that direct deposit has made it to where you just did it hit my bank account? Great. Let's go out to eat. Let's go get groceries, whatever it's going to be. But do I think this is real common? No. And do I think to this degree, does overpayment happen? Yes, but does it happen to $150,000 to the tune of, I think it was I saw 30 employees or something like that?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how many. Because the reporting last week has some of the amounts saying that the largest a leader did get from $37,000 paid out over 2 years.
Yep.
But I mean, so that when you're looking at those amount of sums, $10,000, $37,000, and okay, you got to pay this back by the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, so in the news story that was reported, they linked to an Office of Management Budget policy, which we just talked about briefly before coming on here. And I went and took a look at that policy. And in the story, they talked about how they met with the employees and they were going to have to sign a statement to indicate that they had been overpaid. And that's part of this policy is that you have to try to get this signed statement. But the OMB policy is they want to try to get it done by basically the next pay period, which there's no way they can obviously do that with someone got paid $37,000.
Yeah, you don't just have that sitting around in an account somewhere.
No, especially as we got Christmas coming up in the story. A lot of people said that happy holidays. This is the way it's got to be. And I was also thinking there's tax implications here, which is mentioned in the story. But I think that's a bigger thing for each individual employee, because if you filed taxes last year and you got overpaid and now you're going to have to pay it, you're going to have to do corrected W-2s. You're going to have to fix your taxes most likely. And then for the state, they're trying to get this figured out because it's tax dollars. You got auditing, you got answerable to the legislature. And what would be interesting, if I was an employee, I would be calling my local legislator and going, what is happening here? You guys really expect me to fix this? And it would be interesting to see what at the state government level, how they might try to do this. But I know if I was Mayville State, I believe, is trying to soften the blow. They're not saying, I want $37,000 by next week. They're trying to figure out a way in order to make this work, which I think is the smartest way to do it, because it's bad PR if right before Christmas you're saying, it's
right. Instead of a bonus, we're having you pay us.
Correct.
Not a good look, for whether it's a private or a public institution.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when it comes to this, to me, it seems like this was at no fault of the employees. They were just receiving, what they probably were every given pay period. When you're seeing that some of this is paid out over the course of multiple years, so it's not like, I'm going to just keep this quiet because maybe this is a one-off thing. That there's no responsibility on behalf of the institution is kind of how I read into this, besides just reclaiming that money.
Yeah, from what I've seen is the institution. It's not something that you can perhaps go out and say, hire a lawyer and say, well, I'm not going to pay this because of A, B, and C. Can you hire a lawyer and try to do that? Yes, but I think you're going to make it very difficult, because as part and parcel of you being an employee, you're going to sign this employee handbook, which is subject to certain policies, which most people, a lot of employees don't even read. They go, here's the employee handbook. Usually it's like 40, 50 pages. People are like, I just want to get started in my job, and sign off on that. And when you sign off on that, you're agreeing that you have read the policies that are in there. So my guess would be is that this policy is in the employee handbook and you've agreed to it. Now, how binding of a contract that's up for a court to decide. But here, I think these employees are a little bit stuck. And I think Mayville State is trying to figure out what's the best way that we get this money back without also saying, like, bankrupting employees, right? And what would be interesting to know, and in the story they talked about, there was some payroll issues in the past there was like extra work being done or extra classes being done. And there was some payroll issues. And so some of the people said, when we saw that there was maybe a different payment, or we just thought that was part of the issue and didn't investigate it any further. So it would be interesting to know how exactly those payroll issues worked out, and what the differing payments were. So
there's because of the uniqueness, I wouldn't mind diving in maybe after a break here about if this were just a private, because this public, the use of tax dollars, I mean, you've got public employees, union that's now being asked questions of, and I'm not sure how this all flushes out given just the nature that it's public. I mean, do the employees have as much legal, I don't want to say rights, because legal opportunities or legal options given that they're public employees versus a private? Is that what this really centers on, do you think?
I think to a degree they're bound by some stricter policies here just because they are tax dollars, right? Where in a private employer would probably look at this and go, how, as a private employer, I go, oh boy, how do we make this work, right? And I think that's what Mayville State is trying to do. But at the same time, they also are probably acknowledging that they have to try to get this tax dollars back because they're bound by certain requirements, and there's auditing being done. And I think that's how this was kind of discovered.
Well, that's the way I understand it. Yeah. Yep.
And so I think they're more restrictive. Now, as far as the employees, they do have this union that's going to probably be backing them up. And I think from what I read in the story, the union is also trying to take a look into this, and they want a third-party auditor coming in to be like, okay, you messed up the payroll. Can we really take you at face value that all this is right? Let's get a third party in here and make sure that all the T's are being crossed, all the I's are being dotted, and figure out where we go from there. It's a really sticky situation to be in, and it's interesting that some of these employees who were brought in and saying, "Hey, you've been overpaid, $10,000. I need you to sign this," and they're like, "No way, I'm not going to sign this." I'm sure the first thing they thought is, "I'm going to call the union and figure out what exactly is going on here." But I think that the employees, on the one hand, are a little bit more restricted, but they also have a union, which not a lot of private employees have at this point. So they have some advantages there of having a union that's going to represent them.
I want to ask this question before we take a break. If they were asked to come into this, sign this, saying, "Whoops, you acknowledge this," would you have advised them to not sign this till you reviewed it as an attorney?
My advice is, before you sign anything that's legal, you're worried that you might be giving up rights or being obligated to do something, it never hurts to call an attorney, because whenever somebody calls me and says, well, I have a contract, or I have this, or somebody's asking me to sign this, I don't go, well, just go ahead and sign it. I go, can you email it to me so I can actually take a look at this to see what exactly you're giving up? So I think that the ones that maybe for the larger amounts didn't go ahead and sign it, I think that was probably the smart thing to do, because depending on what Mayville State was showing them, you're going to want to take a look at that. And I would want a lawyer to take a look at that. And I might even want, get an independent auditor to, make sure that everything's going to be right, because it's not only the overpayment, it is the tax issue too. Because if you got overpaid and you paid taxes on that, now you're fixing that. Now you have to go back and fix your taxes for a year or two if it's been 2 years. There's a whole bunch of other issues here.
A mess is what it sounds like. The tax situation adds to that, because you're thinking Medicare and Social Security is what I'm guessing.
Yep, and I think that's part of the concern. I'm trying to get the overpayment back. And then the other issue is, and I'm not familiar with this, is how are they paid for retirement, right? If you have a 401k, you get a whatever matching if your employer does that, and it comes out of your paycheck. How are they going to make that right? And so I think there's so many different layers here, just outside of there's the overpayment, there's all the fringe benefits that come with it.
Well, the public employees, the PERS program too, I'm sure has got their fingers in this.
Yep.
You got a little bit more time. I got messages coming in at 35270.
Absolutely.
Ross Nielsen, who's part of that Nielsen brand law firm, he's been involved with this topic before. We'll continue the conversation. Stay with us. We're talking about the situation being reported out of Mayville State, employees getting some notices that they were overpaid and now they're being asked to repay that. We're talking about just the legalese of this with Ross Nielsen. Questions coming in for you.
Okay.
35270. Tyler, what if they quit? Would they still need to pay it back?
I think they would have to, because it's still an overpayment, and based on the OMB policy I'm looking at here is that they would be responsible for overpaying it, for the overpayment. Now the question would be, let's say you quit and they might be responsible for it. Does that mean the state of North Dakota is going to come and take you to small claims court if you're under 15,000? Or is Mayville State going to be responsible for that? How is that going to be handled? And as we always like to say, that whenever you're looking at these things, like the IRS always gets paid first. They find a way. They anytime you would be selling a house, all this other stuff. And my assumption would be is the state of North Dakota too, with this agency, would probably likely be one of the first people to get paid first. They would find a way to get their money back.
Yeah. One thing that you mentioned earlier about some audit stuff, and I'm not meaning to pick on Mayville State by any means, but in some of the reporting that there's been some issues with audits in the past. So if I'm on the employee side, I didn't realize I was getting overpaid, and I'm going to address that because there's messages saying, Tyler, how did they not know that they were getting overpaid? But knowing that there appears to be some history of discrepancies, perhaps is how I'd put it, in audits.
Okay.
And if I'm an employee looking at that, I mean, doesn't that give me more standing to say, look, we need somebody else that's outside of this building, outside of this campus to look at this? I mean, does that have to be decided by a court? How does that flux out if we want a third party, like, say, North Dakota United is suggesting?
Yeah, I think that if I was representing Mayville State and we had this issue, and the employers are saying, listen, we can't, you guys have had issues in the past, we can't trust those numbers. I think, okay, if we agree to a third party auditing, to take a look at this and the numbers still add up, are you going to agree then that you owe it and we're going to figure out what the payment plan is? And if North Dakota United says, yes, that's what we'd like to do, we're not going to challenge it, that makes sense then. Because if you're confident in your numbers, then you shouldn't have to worry necessarily about a third-party auditor. Now, does that mean your numbers are going to be exact? No, but if you think that you're pretty close to the mark, I think that solves a lot of issues and eliminates, gets this out of the paper and things like that.
35270. More questions coming in. Tyler, is there a liability for the payroll staff who didn't notice an error for those years?
Depend on who's making the payroll, right? So you could go back to the payroll staff if you have someone who's private. You could probably make that claim that you guys screwed this up and you need to help make this right. Now, whether payroll companies have insurance for something like that, that's something I'm not aware of, but I would guess they might have some potential liability insurance. But because it's a state agency, not sure if it gets paid through a state agency. And right now the state agency made the payments and then now they're asking for the money back. So I think that the liability would probably likely not be there. For the employees, like going out and starting a lawsuit, I guess if you owe $37,000 or if you're trying to fight it, maybe it'd be worth it. But if you owe like $800, then you got to like examine like how much is an attorney cost versus how much, are we going to do a payment plan over next 24 payments, pay periods? Is it a payment plan over the next 6 pay periods? I mean, those are all things that I'm sure are being discussed to try to figure it out. I wouldn't be surprised if the state or Mayville State's going to have to take a haircut on the actual amount that they're going to actually get back just to get people to pay. Like anybody who's collecting a debt. Sometimes you say, you owe me $10,000. If you give me $6,000 cash right now, I'll take it. We'll forget about it because I got that money right now rather than chasing it.
The OMB policy that you have, Office of Management and Budget there, and I've only got a minute here. Am I going to be able to get more of your time?
Sure.
Sorry. Don't charge the company for all these legal advice. But the policy there says basically you can start garnishing paychecks. Is that what I read? That if they don't pay back, then you can start collecting that on the next paycheck.
Yeah, from what I've seen in the policy, it looks like they'll be able to start taking out of your next paychecks. The policy here, though, looks like it's for like maybe the next pay period or 2 is what they're contemplating. But this is a whole different situation where maybe you got paid over $500 in the last paycheck and they go, okay, we'll take it out of the next 2. You got paid $37,000. You're not going to be able to do that on a salary at Mayville State, most likely.
Well, that's where people are steering the conversation in the text club here about, okay, I get it if it was a couple hundred you didn't notice, but how did you not notice 30,000? So you stay with me.
Will do.
All right. I'm not going to put you on the spot, but we'll ask you more questions. Your questions are welcome as well, 35270. We'll come back to that. We'll check in with Rusty Halverson, get you some egg-related news as well. Tuesday edition of Afternoons Live. We're just getting started here on KFGO.
KFGO News, Fargo-Moorhead, mostly sunny and 46. I'm Paul Jurgens. Governor Burgum is criticizing President Biden after the president announced that the Department of Energy will release 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help lower gas prices and improve supply-demand issues. Burgum says his decision is baffling. He says executive actions taken by the administration have done nothing but put up roadblocks for the domestic oil industry to recover to pre-pandemic levels. Gas prices in Fargo-Moorhead vary from $3.09 to about $3.15. Nationally, the average is $3.40 a gallon. A year ago, prices are averaging under $2 a gallon nationwide. Don't drive impaired. That's again the message from law enforcement in Minnesota heading into the holidays. Amanda Albrecht recounted her family's life, how her family's life has changed since Thanksgiving 2006 when her sister was killed after driving drunk.
With the holidays coming up, there will be a lot of parties happening. There are so many options to get home safe these days. Please don't take a chance. And please, if you see someone trying to leave after they've been drinking, please stop them. You could save lives.
Albrecht's sister died in a crash south of the Twin Cities. She was drunk, driving about 100 miles an hour and texting when she lost control of her car. 46, this is KFGO News. "46 degrees. You're listening to KFGO News. A Minneapolis bank that was badly damaged during protests and rioting over the death of George Floyd is giving the property to a nonprofit developer to build affordable housing, commercial space, and a home for cultural organizations. The U.S. Bank site is part of the Lake Street commercial neighborhood that became the target of vandalism and arson. The multi-million-dollar project will feature businesses led by minorities. Community organizations will own portions of the development. The top Republican in the Minnesota Senate says he's willing to postpone a debate over the confirmation of Health Commissioner Jan Malcolm to help break the stalemate over a special session. Majority Leader Jeremy Miller says if Democrats agree to discuss Republican proposals on coronavirus, he would drop threats to remove Malcolm from office. North Dakotans for Public Integrity is questioning proposed rules from the State Ethics Commission. Kathy Tweeten is Secretary-Treasurer for NDPI.
The North Dakota Ethics Commission has really worked hard, but I became very concerned and disappointed when I saw that the Ethics Commission's proposed rules or draft rules did not consider election contributions as a conflict of interest.
The development of the Ethics Commission was approved by voters in 2018. It also established requirements for campaign finance transparency, lobbying, and conflict of interest. Commission members were appointed 2 years ago and have been working on establishing rules. A federal judge is ordering a Becker, Minnesota farmer to pay nearly $1.5 million in restitution for defrauding the USDA on loans. 67-year-old Robert Anderson was also sentenced to 3 years of probation and community service. The U.S. Attorney's Office says Anderson used false statements to get loans by pledging to maintain bushels of corn as collateral. The Farm Service Agency later discovered Anderson's corn bins were nearly empty, and then he sold the corn under a relative's name to avoid detection. Anderson pleaded guilty. Fargo-Moorhead, partly to mostly sunny this afternoon. We're looking for a high of about 50. Southerly wind at 12 to 26 or so. Then increasing clouds, 27 for the overnight low. Clouds, wind tomorrow, scattered flurries. KFGO meteorologist Tom Szymanski is expecting a high of about 30 and then steadier falling temperatures. Northerly wind tomorrow at 16 to 36 and gusty at times. Thanksgiving, mostly sunny, 22. Partly sunny Friday, the high 38. Fargo-Moorhead, mostly sunny, 47. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
Rusty Halverson in studio. How you doing, man?
Doing well.
Coffee with KFGO. Sounds like it was a pretty big success down in Foreman.
Ooh, baby, good food.
Yeah, the donuts, they're pretty good up here.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. If it was you or Jack Michael, somebody brought him back, and I appreciate whoever that was.
Yep, they came in the car with Jack and me. So.
you carpooled with Jack Michael?
Yeah, I sure
You were
did.
driving, right?
He was driving.
Really?
No,
Last time that happens, I bet.
I'm getting that a lot today from people.
I'm just saying, there's sometimes I've seen some duct tape on the outside of that.
Yeah,
rig.
it's still there.
Anyway, in a little bit, we're going to be joined by Heidi Heitkamp talking about oil and what that's now rolling out in the news. And there's a lot of criticisms of the policies that impact climate.
Yep.
And I know there's a discussion on other aspects of energy and climate out there.
Yes, indeed. In fact, Senator Kevin Cramer today hosting a climate discussion with the Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan there in Fargo at NDSU. And one of the speakers there was Wade Bassans, and he's Executive Vice President of Summit Carbon Solutions. He talked about this proposed pipeline they've got in the works. It would capture CO2 from 31 ethanol plants across 5 states, compress the gas, sink it into the ground at some proposed permanent sequestration sites in western North Dakota. Could be the the world's largest carbon capture and storage project. And he gave an update on the timeline for the project, but he says a real key will be the ability to finance it. He previously worked on Project Tundra that captures CO2 from the Milton R. Young Station. That proposal still in the works for the coal-fired power plant in Oliver County on behalf of Minn Kota Power Cooperative.
And took it to a point where I could take it in front of a public board. That board didn't believe that it was financeable, that the markets would support the financing because it hadn't been de-risked. And so the ability to access capital is critical to the success of these projects, which means the markets have to accept that CCS is a deployable, risk-mitigated technology, if you will, for the future.
Now, of course, CCS, Tyler, carbon capture storage. Now, they're trying to get permits for that entire Project Tundra idea for the Minn Kota power plant. Now, for the Summit Carbon Solutions pipeline, their timeline is they'd like to submit for permits in first quarter of 2022, construction mid-year 23, online in 2024, but one of the hurdles, permits, and we can talk about that next hour.
Yeah, so imagine state, federal, water involved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Add the Army Corps. Yeah, and that's not going to be an easy task either, I'd imagine.
Bingo.
We'll talk about that next hour, as
Okay.
I said. All right, Rusty Alverson, some of the best work in the business. You can go to KFGO.com, him and Sarah Heinrich, award-winning. You can check out that work right there. CBS National News, we're going to continue this conversation. Lots of thoughts, lots of comments about the overpayments. Should they have to repay it? You let me know at 35270. Lenny studio line open as well, 237-5948. This is Afternoons Live on KFGO. Continuing the conversation about what's been reported, Mayville State overpayments, now asking those employees to pay back what was overpaid. Ross Nielsen and my guest with Nielsen Brand. Here, I'll just summarize the sentiment in the text club. People are saying, look, you know what, I get it if your overpayments for a couple hundred, but somebody that was getting, say, overpaid $37,000 must have known and isn't being truthful. And I'm not trying to, talk, about that specific individual, but I think there's an argument depending on what position they had at the university.
Yeah, I think,
or at the college.
Yeah, I think at the college there'll be questions, right? So if it was over 2 years, right, and you're getting paid twice a month, that's about 24 payments, right? Mm-hmm. I think it actually ends up being like 26. And so if you're looking at 37,000, you're probably looking at like $500 or $600 each paycheck. And so we don't know who was overpaid. We don't know if it was the person doing food service. We don't know if it's the person, an adjunct, or we don't know if it's someone in administration. So it would obviously depend if someone one day is making $1,000 each paycheck and the next paycheck's $4,000. Obviously, they're gonna have a tough time saying, "I didn't know."
Right? Yeah,
I didn't know.
Fair.
But if it's someone who was only getting, got 5,000 and it was over the course of 2 years, and that's 26 payments, maybe that's $200 a paycheck, and you're getting it in direct deposit, and you're just like, oh, maybe something changed with my taxes or how the healthcare worked out. I mean, people don't pay attention to their paychecks anymore. I don't, to be honest. Sadly, my wife does most of our financial stuff.
There's an accountant in the house.
There's an accountant. Yeah, she takes care of that, and so I always joke that she could be robbing me blind, and I'd have no clue.
I got a buddy who's got a very similar situation. She takes all of the receipts and does all the work. Yeah.
So I think for people, like I get it. I get where people are like $37,000 over 2 years. Somebody knew something, and maybe they did. But at the end of the day, maybe they thought after it was being done over 6 months, they thought, oh, maybe just it was something in the accounting office and this is just the way it's going to be. Does that mean they shouldn't have to pay it back? Looking at the policies I look at, they're going to have to pay it back. Now, how they do that, is it over the course of, 2 pay periods, over the course of 2 years? That's where I think they're trying to figure out.
Let's say this conflict doesn't get resolved peacefully. Mayville State saying, "Yep, we're going to try to work with you. We understand whatever amount, especially given the holidays right now, that things are a little bit more expensive.
Yeah.
You have other expenses you wouldn't have most other times of the year. We want to work with you." And the employees are saying, like, "No, you goofed. This is a state institution. Is this an attorney general thing? I mean, if the employees say, nope, we're out, we're not doing this." Okay, then I understand Mayville State. Well, then guess what? Here's the next step. Does it go? And does the attorney general represent the college? That's where my assumption would be. But you got state employees just.
Well, I think so. The first step would be, if you're still working at Mayville State University, looking at the policies I've looked at, they would probably just say, okay, you're not going to agree to it. We'll just start taking it out of your paycheck. Now, let's say that person quits. Now you have an outstanding debt, presumably, is what you would call it if you're representing the university. My guess would be it would end up in the Attorney General's office. How badly the Attorney General's office wants to touch this is probably about zero.
Probably.
Yeah, and so that's where, the thinking, you're going to have to take a haircut. Maybe you take 60% of what you can get back just to get this out of the news and to get this off your plate. I think that could definitely happen.
Speaking of news, and now we're kind of muddying waters here, because you got also the Board of Higher Education. I mean, there's so many different layers here. And they have audits, they have reviews of presidents of those that are leading these institutions. And it wasn't, I don't think, very long ago where you got NDSU's president. I think you had NDSCS down in Wapton. I think you had Mayville State that were getting some of these, questionable remarks done by the board. I don't have any idea what the climate is up at Mayville State. I don't. I've been on campus when I've been involved in state government, but that's been the extent of it. Is that out of the purview of any of these discussions as far as, well, there's been some auditing done in the past that have revealed some things might not feel right, or is that completely a separate issue here?
Well, I think it would depend on where does the buck stop, right? If it's something where the financial office or whoever's handling the payroll, whether it's at the state level, because I'm not sure who's writing out the checks, did they goof up? Is it someone at the university level? Then if you're the president at university, there's probably going to be some questions. And I think for, any employer, whether it be the Board of Higher Education or even us, you do factor in, okay, and even here at KFGO, I'm sure they say, okay, you did this good, but you had some issues here. And
Which happens from time to time.
What happens from time to time, right? And so I think that obviously it's not something where they're probably going to just turn a blind eye to it. But I think if you can say, listen, this is what happened, this is what we took to fix it, and it's over and done with, and it's put to bed, that's a different issue if it's like this was known and no one fixed it. But if it was somebody who just goofed up, and this is a big goof up, this isn't like $1,000, this is taxpayer money. But I can't speak for the North Dakota Board of Higher Education, but I think that it would be something that they would take a look at when they're doing reviews of the different heads of the institutions. And obviously for Mayville State, they're trying to fix it.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking 15 employees overpaid a collective total of $152,000, almost $153,000. So yeah, it's not small potatoes when you're talking about a university, tax dollars, and everything else that funds those colleges. I mean, it's kind of a mess, and it's got to get resolved.
Yeah, and I think everybody, and I think Mayville State would obviously say this too, is like they didn't want this to happen.
Yeah,
this wasn't something that they were purposely doing. It wasn't like here's the 5 employees we really like, we're going to try to funnel them money. And, this is a nightmare, I think, for any employer. It would be for me if we were overpaying someone. I don't know what we do because we'd have to fix all that. And I'd probably look at the payroll company we have and go, what exactly is going on?
Hello. Yeah. We pay you to take it. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, well, you clarified some things, but it's still just so muddy of a situation for me that.
Yeah. And it's going to be one thing that'll be interesting. And, and I'm sure the different news agencies are, open records laws in North Dakota are extremely broad and open.
Yeah. I will give credit to the state for having that as well. Because we can go south, and South Dakota's a whole different animal trying to get any.
Yeah. I've utilized in my practice open records laws to get access to records I wouldn't have been able to. So I give the state credit to it. Obviously, if you're running a governmental institution, it's maybe not so great from time to time. Correct, yeah. But I think at some point we're going to get the full story on it. And I'm sure people who agree to some kind of agreement with Mayville State, it'd be interesting to know if there's going to be some kind of confidentiality clause in all this. If I was running the show on their side, I would want a confidentiality clause.
A little bit. Well, we don't discuss personnel issues. I think that's the go-to line whenever.
Well, it's difficult with open records laws. Sure. If you're an institution, you can't. You have to like really tiptoe around how you do that because you still have to maintain the records can be accessed, but it's just the way you handle it. And there's some, the state and the attorneys that handle
that's a different attorney situation.
That might be at the Attorney General's office. How do we handle this?
Yeah. So. Ross, I appreciate your time, man. You gave me way more than what we asked for.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Have a nice Thanksgiving as well.
You too.
Ross Nielsen Brand, I tell you what, KFGO weather update, Tutal Tom Szymanski. Your thoughts? Should they have to pay back the overpayment? Whose side you on that whole dispute? We'll have that conversation. Also, you just heard CBS National News. 50 million barrels out there out of the reserve. Do you think it's going to make a difference? We'll visit with Heidi Heitkamp in just a little bit. You got it locked into KFGO. Stay with us.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm KFGO Chief Meteorologist Tutal Tom Szymanski. Sky condition will vary from partly sunny to mostly sunny for the rest of the day. South winds at 10 to 26, so a little bit on the breezy side. We will be within a couple of degrees of 50. How about that? Clouds increase 27 tonight. We will turn north and increase to 9 to 42. Cloudy, windy tomorrow, scattered flurry, morning high of 30. That's your falling 10. Thanksgiving Day, mostly sunny, low 7, high 22. How about the travel period after Thanksgiving through the weekend? Details on that coming up next hour.
It's currently 47 degrees in the KFGO studios. More afternoons live at Tyler Axness coming up after this.
creature from outer space.
Now,
I mean, if I find myself as one of the employees that was receiving overpayments, it doesn't matter to me if it's a couple hundred or if it was a couple thousand. And we'll just say the benefit of the doubt is you had no idea. I would want that third party looking. And I think that's where, some of the members of the North Dakota United, which is the Public Employees and Teachers Union, saying, hey, just to make sure everything is all squared away, because, I mean, an accident happened. A clerical error led to this. So if you're one of those that's being asked now to repay, whatever amount it might be, over what course of time that might be, I think just to make sure that everybody is cool with it, that seems pretty reasonable to me, and that's what I'd be asking. Now, the question is, who's that supposed to be? The university system? Where do you go for that? The North Dakota State Auditor, who's never shied away from getting, some audits and name out there as far as what their office has been doing. But I think that's reasonable to say, look, to make sure that this is all well and good because there was an error, and now, you're asking this of me. I would want another set of eyes on this. I mean, tell me how that's wrong. 35270. And as far as what we're just discussing, I have no doubt they're going to try to find a way to make this quietly just get resolved and not escalate matters. Because, I mean, we've been following along over the last few decades. Anytime that there's a moment in the higher education system in North Dakota, it seems like that just builds onto something else. And all of a sudden you have another, set of discussions as to how we could poke and kind of chip away at edges of North Dakota's higher education system overall, not just necessarily one university or one college over another. And I don't think this should rise to that occasion. I certainly think that the delegation, as far as the legislators up in that district, need to be answering phone calls if these employees, or in fact, if the university itself is contacting them. Now, there's been so much turnover as far as who represents what district. I have no idea, and I didn't pull up the list right now as to who those lawmakers are in that Mayville area. I know who they used to be, and they haven't been there now for a couple of years. So I hope it gets resolved. I mean, I would hate to have this letter get mailed to me had I not noticed that there's a few bucks off here or there over the course of perhaps 2 years. But it's just not a good look, and it's messy, and it's not going to get resolved overnight. That is without question. But, where does the buck stop? I think ultimately needs to be known, and it needs to be known publicly as this does continue to work its way out of this system. All right. If you want to continue that conversation, by all means, 35270. Here's what I want to talk about, though. National news that happened earlier this morning. You've got the Biden administration saying we're going to be utilizing 50 million barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. There were calls for this for the last few weeks from some leading Democrats. Heidi Heitkamp, I think, was on ABC News on the Sunday morning show last week, suggesting this is a way of which the administration can actually address some of what we're seeing out there. Filling up at the gas pump, for example. Others certainly take an issue with all of this. It's not just the U.S. going it alone. There's a coalition of China, India, Japan, South Korea, Britain, India, I think, are some of them. And what this means for a variety of things. You paying at the gas pump, North Dakota as an oil producer. We'll have that discussion in just a little bit. You can join the conversation there as well after the CBS News update. We'll check in with Paul Juergens right after that. I'm Tyler Axness. Keep it locked into KFGO Fargo.
belongs to a creature from outer space. From outer space.
Yesterday, if you missed the conversation with Gene LaDuce or AAA, we're talking about gas prices. A lot of people, more people this year, obviously, than last, going to be out traveling for the holidays, and they're paying more at the pump. And people have been talking about it. And for a little while, people have been saying, well, what can be done about that, if anything? And some of the leading Democrats had called for the White House to take action for weeks. One of those action items was potentially using the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Get more out there. And Heidi Heitkamp was on ABC News just last Sunday during their morning talk show talking about some other things that could be done. So this announcement's out there today. I'm sure timing-wise, with the holidays coming up, trying to get something to resolve some of this, that's part of it. But I want to know what this means, what it could be done to help you as consumers, what it means just for the industry, what it means for all the balls that are being juggled by the administration right now. She joins us next. Your conversation at 35270. You can also join the Laney studio line a little bit later on at 594. All that and more coming up after this KFGO News Update.
KFGO News, mostly sunny and 48. I'm Paul Jurgens. Reported income by all North Dakota residents and the number of filers dropped last year, largely due to the pandemic. State Tax Department figures show the reported gross income by North Dakotans dropped by 8.4% last year, while the number of filers dropped by more than 18,000 from the year before. The average adjusted gross income in the state dropped from about $66,000 in 2019 to about $63,000 last year. The decreases were not as bad as anticipated. The State Patrol says a St. Paul man was the person killed in a car pickup collision near Thief River Falls early yesterday morning on Highway 59. Killed was 40-year-old Sean Valentine. Valentine was driving a small car when he crossed the center line and crashed into the pickup driven by 73-year-old Glenn Struthers of Red Lake Falls, who was hurt. Linda Struthers, a passenger in the pickup, was also injured. Both were taken to Sanford Medical Center in Thief River Falls. Members of a school board in the Twin Cities suburb of Prior Lake walked out of a special meeting as they were confronted by activists who said racism is widespread in that school district.
If you're more worried about the way in which we respond to the problem than the problem, that's the problem.
Students and activists have pushed the board to take action since a video surfaced earlier this month of two students using a racial slur to harass a black student. 4 board members left that room after the activists yelled and used profanities. The Fargo Barbecue restaurant is closing. Famous Dave, south of I-94 on 45th Street, posted a sign on its door saying that it's a temporary closure and the last day is Friday. The restaurant started to limit its hours last week. Fargo-Moorhead close to 50 this afternoon. We are now at 48 degrees, mostly partly to mostly sunny. Increasing clouds, 27 overnight. Wind picks up tomorrow out of the north. Cloudy, windy, scattered flurries. High in the morning of about 30, and then temperatures holding steady or falling. 22 the afternoon high on Thanksgiving, mostly sunny. Partly sunny for Friday, 38. Saturday, Sunday, partly sunny. Highs 38 to 43. Fargo-Moorhead, mostly sunny, again 48 degrees. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
One of the first things I saw this morning as I was going through national news was that President Biden earlier said that he was going to be releasing through his administration some of the U.S. oil reserves in an effort to combat high gasoline prices, part of a multilateral effort the White House is leading in an attempt to reduce global prices. So you've got the United States, there's some other actors in here with similar efforts. You have China, India, Japan, South Korea, Britain trying to do something. And trying to do something is what has been an ask of a number of leading Democrats for the last few weeks. One of those is former U.S. Senator Heidi Heitkamp right here of North Dakota. She was on ABC News, the morning show last Sunday. I believe she'll be back on this Sunday, calling for some of these action items, and I wanted to visit with her about that. And she's kind enough to join us right now. Heidi, how you been?
I'm good. You know, what's great about what's happening is that it's the administration is coordinating with other consumption consuming nations, and that's going to have a bigger impact on the market and a bigger impact as it relates to OPEC's reaction.
Well, and I'm glad you started there because some of the reaction instantly, which is what happens this day and age, is, well, that's not enough. 50 million barrels isn't going to do a whole heck of a lot. And they are neglecting to mention that this is with partners that are doing parallel efforts across the country to, as you just pointed out, put pressure on those OPEC countries.
Well, you know, and this is part of the supply chain challenges that we experienced during the pandemic. And if you think about it, you're measuring all this against pandemic level prices, which were, in fact, the irony for North Dakota is during that time when oil prices were low, North Dakota and, in fact, President Trump were doing everything they could to drive oil prices back up. and save the domestic industry. And so, if for North Dakota, it's always a double-edged sword when you look at oil prices, because that level of pricing, which is in the $70 to $80 range, will definitely drive new development. You'll see additional fracking of wells that have been idled. You'll see maybe some investment in tertiary recovery that will drive basically new production out of old wells. And so, for North Dakota, driving the price down isn't always the strategy that the state wants, even though we're also a consuming state. So, this is all part of kind of what's happening with supply chains coming out of the pandemic. But obviously, OPEC plays a major role. The Saudis can just open up the spigot and drive that price down tomorrow. And so far, in fact, I think they met today or maybe yesterday and have refused to do that.
Let's talk about OPEC for a second, because one of the criticisms we're hearing from people on the Republican side in particular is when the president came out and, some shape or form suggested that, if OPEC put more oil onto the market, that'd be a good thing. And they're saying, hey, President, we've got the oil right here in places like North Dakota. Is that a fair criticism from those industry leaders saying, look, instead of asking OPEC to be putting more on, we've got it here?
Well, I mean, if you want a short-term solution to this, if you want to look at what we could do right now to lower prices, you can't increase American production that quickly and get it where it needs to go. One of the bottlenecks that we've always experienced is our refining capacity. That's why I led the charge to open up the oil export market, making sure that Bakken oil, light sweet crude, could find a market overseas, because refining capacity for light sweet in our country has been abysmal. And now you take a look at what's going to give some kind of immediate relief, immediate reaction. I think you've got to deal with OPEC in that strategy and in that vein. But down the road, you remember, it was in fact a shale play across the country, whether it's here in the Permian and right now in New Mexico, which is part of the Permian Basin. It was that development that drove oil prices down to around 40 to 50. And hopefully we're going to see a resurgence again of interest in American production.
Well, and I come right back here where I'm reading a headline from the Bismarck Tribune last week about North Dakota's treasury bursting because we have higher oil prices, and those rigs were coming back on, because of where we were. So I think people are quick to forget, I believe, Heidi, that, November of 2020, global demand plummeted. And because we had this pandemic, people weren't traveling. A year later, things have almost inversed itself. The demand is back up, and that is a factor that people, it seems we just want to point out policy, saying, well, this led to that, when in fact it's our actions, I think, that are the biggest driving factor.
Yeah, and it's so ironic because the previous administration tried to drive oil prices up to save the domestic industry. You remember Continental Oil went below $10 a share. We were looking at some pretty serious economic conditions as a result of the pandemic and reduced oil supply. But I think that prices should normalize between that 40 and 60. I think they're excessively high, given the kind of supply that's out there. And I think they're being manipulated by OPEC and by Russia and by Iran. And our domestic supply is critical to achieving a balance that'll put us around the 40 to 50 range, which could make shale profitable, but yet not gouge consumers.
Well, the president just spoke not long ago and kind of alluded to some of that, as far as, I don't know if it was price gouging that he was alluding to, but some of the market manipulation. Is that something that we don't pay enough attention to when it comes to energy?
OPEC's been manipulating the market since the 60s and 70s. So, I mean, this is nothing new. OPEC couldn't exist in this country. It would be a violation of antitrust to have a bunch of producers get together and set how much production they're going to raise. It's basically fundamentally, under our free enterprise system, an illegal structure. But yet states like North Dakota have benefited from OPEC driving prices up because it has created a demand for domestic oil, created a demand for shale, and so you don't hear North Dakota producers arguing that the prices are too high.
Senator Heidi Heitkamp, our guest, and the reaction in state here, and there's people wanting me to ask you this question, that, our governor, our delegation is saying this is all Biden's fault, and they want your response to that.
Well, I mean, how is it Biden's fault? I mean, everybody says, well, he has these anti-oil and gas policies. Those policies will not have the kind of immediate effect that everybody's complaining about. I mean, you can argue about whether Joe Biden is responsible long term for a decrease in oil price demand or oil demand. I think you could make a legitimate argument when you look at a bill now moving over to the Senate that gives you $12,000 credit for buying an electric vehicle. But those policies aren't in effect yet. This is post-pandemic, OPEC basically holding the line, saying, look, we had a few lean years there. We're going to get back to some semblance of normalcy. But right now, when we're at $80, we can still sell our oil. So that's what we're going to do. And, it's going to create that's why having the consuming countries take an aggressive stand, as the Biden administration has led, is a critical signal to the producing countries that, look, we're not going to put up with this. And, long term, that you are, we're going to do everything we can to not let you gouge our consumers. And so I think it's critical. I wish he had done it a little earlier, send the message a little earlier, and we'll see kind of what the reaction is. But as those prices go up, what's going to happen is you're going to see a resurgence of domestic production, which is going to add more barrels, millions of barrels into the global market, including export of American oil, and the price is going to stabilize, and probably stabilize around $40 to $60.
Heidi, I got to find out.
But, right now the pain is hurt.
Yeah. Well, and I mean,
and
filling up, that's what people are talking about. They're taking, it seems like after you get to that $3 mark is when you really start to hear people pointing out the price of gas. But I think you're right, the refinery aspect. Yeah, and Joe Biden could ask for a moratorium on gas taxes. I mean, something that would give consumers, a break, or take a look at American consumers, especially in rural areas where we have to drive so many miles to go to work. Try and create some kind of incentive that keeps us still in the workplace and reduces the cost of going to work. We already have a labor shortage in this country. Let's not exacerbate it by increasing the fuel costs. And part of the inflation that everybody's talking about is the inflation of moving goods and services, whether it's reams of toilet paper or whether it is canned goods. It costs more to get them to market, and those oil prices are driving up all kinds of prices. That's why it's important that they do everything they can to stabilize those prices. Heidi, I've just got one final question for you. You were at the signing of the infrastructure bipartisan bill that was passed just a few weeks ago. A pretty big deal for an area like North Dakota. I'm just curious your thoughts. You were invited there, so just before I let you go, that was a pretty big deal. And I'm leaving a word out, is what Biden would have said. Well, the important thing now is to get it implemented, and that's why I was thrilled that my friend Mitch Landrieu, who is a guy from a state a lot like ours, only it's a little warmer down there. Mitch is been put in charge of getting that money out the door and making sure that it's spent correctly, and so he's an enormously talented person, and so hopefully the relief will be coming. I want to say this, Tyler, because I think there's just a lot of people who are wondering, well, now we did the infrastructure bill, now we're looking at this thing that's been labeled Build Back Better. And everybody's like, oh, that's a boondoggle. Well, let me tell you something. If you want people to get back to work, which is critical for growing the economy, for making sure that our productivity levels are up, you got to deal with daycare. You got to deal with pre-K. You've got to deal with what working families, particularly working women, they've exited the labor market in record numbers. It's because the price of daycare is way too high. And one thing that they discovered during the pandemic, guess what? I'm working for almost nothing. If I stay home with my kids, I make, I'm not losing economically doing that. And so, you can say, well, that's a good thing if people want to stay home with their kids. But if we want to get people back to the workplace, we need this second tranche. I'm not saying it needs to be as hefty as what
maybe Bernie Sanders would like, but I think definitely things like daycare and pre-K are critical for improving our productivity.
Do you suspect something will pass the Senate? I know it passed the House just last Friday, but does it get through the Senate? Not in the shape that it is. I think you're right. It gets narrowed down, but will he get this second win?
Oh, I think he will. I mean, I think at some point, both Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin have signaled they're willing to do something in reconciliation that will move this bill forward. It's just not going to be the kind of robust, wish list that maybe some of the more progressive folks have had on their mind. I had to laugh. I talked to a very prominent Democrat this morning, and I said, if you had told Bernie Sanders that he could get a $1.5 trillion social infrastructure package when I was there, he would have done cartwheels. His 80-year-old body would have done cartwheels down the hall. Everybody needs to adjust their expectations, but also make the right investments. And I'm telling you, if there's one thing that I would be yelling for if I were there, it would be relief to working families by lowering the cost of daycare and improving the quality of daycare.
Heidi, I appreciate your time. I'm going to let you go. I took way more of it than what I asked for. You have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll chat again soon, all right?
You too.
All right.
Take care.
Yeah, you
Bye-bye.
do the same. Heidi Heitkamp, former U.S. Senator here in North Dakota. Your thoughts at 35270. I want to dive in on the infrastructure bill just a little bit and what that means, because I was hearing it while I was out deer hunting this weekend. Those township roads, relief coming. We'll discuss that next right here on KFGO.
It belongs to a creature from outer space. From outer space.
When it comes to infrastructure, here's a common theme that you present to me often, and you are right. I mean, I don't argue with you because you're absolutely right. And this is all the way from the feds through your state on down. And it's those rural pockets, those township roads that always get neglected when it comes to funding. Many of you listening to me out there might be on a township board. You know it. And one thing that I had heard, because, back deer hunting, there was a road that's been underwater for a little while. It's coming out because, it's been dry. The drought has revealed some of the infrastructure that was underwater for a little bit of time. Township road. And I'd asked while we were out there saying, are they going to rebuild that road, or is that just going to be a lost one? He goes, well, It sounds like with this infrastructure bill, the grant process is going to be there to get the money for it. Then we discuss, well, what's the labor going to be? How are you going to pay for that? Is that going to be a township expense? And it sounds like, no, there's going to be some money for that as well inside that infrastructure bill. That was a bipartisan pass through Congress this year. So those township roads finally going to get the attention I think that's been long overdue. And it's not going to be just the burden of the few sparse people that live in such a rural area. It's important to have those roads work because you know what? What you're doing in the field and getting that to market feeds the rest of us. So for people saying, well, they just need to pull themselves up and pay for those roads on their own. Those roads have become more expensive to upkeep, as you're well aware. And in some of those pockets have had fewer people to actually throw in a couple of bucks through their local mills and all that. So you have to have the investment. And I'm fine if my dollars, while I live in this part, are going up to parts like that across the country because I know the work they're doing there is still impacting all this. So when we talk about the fact that you've got, say, the Prairie Dog Initiative, the years ago, that all the promises that were made that we were going to use, coincidentally, by the oil money in North Dakota, and it never happened. Or it didn't at that time because, you know what? The pandemic hit. The money wasn't there. The price for oil plummeted because no one was traveling because we were told, guess what? You can't go anywhere or you shouldn't go anywhere. All of that is still working itself out. But even when the formula was there and we thought the money was coming in at the state level, bottom of the list, township roads, rural areas. So I'm glad that out of the federal government, this money is coming to North Dakota. It's coming to South Dakota. It's going to Minnesota. I mean, it's going to be sprinkling out. And the benefits, you might not see them for years to come because these aren't just turnkey operations all the time. But those roads, those bridges that have been long neglected, finally going to get the dollars they needed. That facelift coming to you via the federal government. Your thoughts, 237-5948. Text me, 35270. Coming back to you right after this.
KFGO News, mostly sunny, 49. I'm Paul Jurgens. Governor Burgum is criticizing President Biden after the president announced the Department of Energy will release 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help lower gas prices and improve supply-demand issues. Burgum says the decision is baffling. He says executive actions taken by the administration have done nothing but put up roadblocks for the domestic oil industry to recover to pre-pandemic levels. A Cottage Grove, Minnesota woman is talking about what her family went through when her 19-year-old sister died in a drinking-related crash over Thanksgiving in 2006. Briana Albrecht crashed in the southern Twin Cities. Amanda Albrecht spoke at the gravesite of her sister.
I had to grow up so fast. At 16 years old, I helped pick out a casket, design a headstone, and help pick out clothes for Briana to wear in her casket.
Briana Albrecht was texting and driving about 100 miles an hour at the time of the crash. Her sister spoke with state troopers at her side as the Department of Public Safety kicked off an impaired driving enforcement campaign that will run through the end of the year. 49, this is KFGO News. Sunny, 49, this is KFGO News. The top Republican in the Minnesota Senate says he's willing to postpone a debate over the confirmation of Health Commissioner Jan Malcolm to help break the stalemate over a special session. Majority Leader Jeremy Miller says if Democrats agree to discuss Republican proposals on coronavirus, he would drop threats to remove Malcolm. Republicans have been critical of Governor Walz's emergency powers and public health restrictions and believe getting rid of Malcolm would send a message. The Republican proposals include regulatory relief and up to $250 million for long-term care, as well as lifting some vaccine policies put in place by Governor Walz. The government watchdog group North Dakotans for Public Integrity is expressing concern with proposed rules from the State Ethics Commission approved by voters in 2018. It established requirements for campaign finance disclosure, lobbying, and conflict of interest. Alan Chaffee, vice president of the group, says the commission appears to be bending the rules on conflict of interest.
The governor and all the members of the Industrial Commission and the Public Service Commission receive campaign donations from the people they regulate. And the intent of Article 14 is to require them to recuse themselves if they have received campaign contributions from a particular party to the decision.
The commission will hold a public hearing next Tuesday to consider the draft rules and open the process for public comment. Comments will be reviewed at a meeting next month. A Minneapolis bank that was badly damaged during protests and rioting over the death of George Floyd is giving the property to a nonprofit developer to build affordable housing, commercial space, and a home for cultural organizations. The U.S. Bank site is part of the Lake Street commercial neighborhood that became the target of vandalism and arson. The multi-million-dollar project will feature businesses led by minorities. Community organizations will own portions of the development. Near 50 for our high this afternoon. Fargo-Moorhead, partly to mostly sunny. Southerly wind at 10 to 26. Increasing cloudiness 27 overnight. Tomorrow cloudy with a strong north wind 16 to 36, gusty at times. Scattered flurries possible. Morning high of 30 and then steadier falling temperatures. 22 the high Thursday. Mostly sunny, partly sunny Friday 38. Fargo-Moorhead, mostly sunny. It is 49. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
Sometimes I just want Cash to play a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Little Johnny Cash.
Lighten the mood.
Yeah. I do need the lightening of the mood just from time to time.
Lots of serious
topics.
topics.
Always bringing the sunshine when you...
No.
I don't know.
Well,
I tried.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes
don't read too much into that.
Really bad news.
Yeah, that's true. But you always deliver it in such an optimistic way.
Yeah, I'll try to. Try to.
Yes. And then you let me sour on it for about another hour. We were talking about a variety of things, ethanol being one of them, some climate, all that. And you're talking permits. So we said, you know what, next hour let's talk permits because these things just don't happen. You want to build a pipeline, which I think there's probably sometimes certain people don't ever want to hear the word pipeline in the vocabulary when it comes to energy or when it comes to climate, all that. But sometimes that infrastructure is necessary.
Yes, sometimes it is. And just to get folks caught up if they didn't catch what we were talking about last hour, Senator Kramer today hosting Bank of America CEO Brian Moynihan in Fargo. They had a town hall about climate solutions. One of the speakers there, Wade Basons, Executive Vice President of Summit Carbon Solutions. They want to build a pipeline that would connect 31 ethanol plants, capture CO2 from the production of ethanol at those plants, ship it to North Dakota, sink it into the ground for a permanent carbon sequestration project. To do that, they need permits. And for the CO2 pipeline, Basons told Moynihan they're working on those permits.
The process to get all the permits, is that state level and federal level applications that have to run in?
Yeah, primarily state. So in North Dakota, so you see, today in North Dakota, you have, several projects underway. Globally, there's about 30 million tons a year of CCS projects. There's almost 30 million tons of CCX projects currently proposed in North Dakota. Why is that? It's because of the legal, tax, and regulatory structure, and North Dakota has primacy over CO2 and the regulation of CO2 storage. But we will be securing permits across all 5 states, as well as from the Corps of Engineers.
So one of the takeaways, I guess, Tyler, would be that the regulatory environment in North Dakota is conducive, friendly for these types of projects. And these types of projects, of course, something that's in the headlines, lots of folks are talking about.
And you can tell me if this is out of the purview, but yeah, when it comes to, capturing the CO2, injecting that, storage below ground, who's driving it when it comes to ethanol? I mean, I know ethanol, emits. I'm not, naive, not
No problem.
This was supposed to be that good alternative, right? For some people, and now it seems like, well, it's not quite clean enough for us. Am I gauging the actors the right way?
You are correct. In fact, that's something that when we were in Kansas City and we had, you and I had a conversation about the Farm Bill, and that featured Pat Roberts and Colin Peterson. And Colin said that in the Farm Bill debates of the past, one of the things that was driving the discussion of the next shiny new nickel or big idea was cellulosic ethanol. And that was back in the early 2010s. And cellulosic ethanol has not flourished as some may have predicted that it should have by now. And he had thought that maybe when it comes to clean ethanol, that maybe that was the next big thing. And Colin Peterson said that many of the environmentalists who were on board with ethanol production instead of oil production, they were all for the idea, but now the pendulum has kind of shifted again, and now when it comes to the way we grow corn and the way we produce ethanol, it's not maybe green enough in today's climate debate discussion. So we're going to capture CO2 from the production of ethanol, making it an even cleaner climate solution. Does that make sense?
I mean, the way you described it, yes. I won't pull you into the other one because you're the news guy. I'll share the rest of it. Well, it's clean, but not quite good enough for us. It sounds to me maybe goalposts are being moved. I won't even ask you the question if you agree, okay?
Okay.
Rusty, appreciate it, though.
You bet.
See, I told you that optimism you bring in.
Yeah.
Rusty Alverson, award-winning, him and Sarah Heinrich, both award-winning, part of this KFGO agriculture team. You can go to KFGO.com, check out more of their work there. CBS National News on the way. Whatever you want to talk about, I'm here for you. 35270, Laney studio line available as well. 237-5948. I'm Tyler Axness. Stay with us. If you haven't done so yet, I would encourage you to go to KFGO.com and check out the work that was done. I think it was last evening, Paul Jurgens, on this unusual accusation from a farmer that's originally from Ashley, North Dakota, now is being detained over in Ukraine. And the allegations are that he's involved in some plotting of an attempted assassination, just completely unusual. I mean, you read through it, it sounds like some plot out of something you would watch on a big screen. But I know our delegation's involved because, you have to have the State Department. And I can only imagine the family here, because you can't have really any communication because it's in jail. And I understand the concern of, health, well-being, but just completely unusual. And we're just talking on the break. Eric Johnson's my producer. I'm Tyler Axness. You're listening to Afternoons Live on KFGO, of how unusual some of these global connections to the Midwest and have been. And I'm not talking about the market stuff, but I mean, the allegations are just so over the top as to, when it comes to this individual from Ashley. And you think about this being so unusual. And then the other story that was just south of us that had those international intertanglements, was it Maria Butina, I think was her name. And I think she was from Russia. And it was involved with the NRA, and I cannot for the life of me remember the power player that was down in South Dakota that allegedly worked with her to get her involved in these political organizations. It's just some of this stuff sounds like it's out of a spy novel. It was Maria Butina, right? South Dakota.
Yeah, so she was allegedly a KGB operative, and it looks like Paul Erickson.
That's what it was.
Who was romantically connected to her and pled guilty to wire fraud and money laundering as part of a fraudulent investment scheme that he operated for many years.
But these are things that you watch, like I say, on the big screen almost, and yet it's just in our little quiet part of the world in the upper Midwest. You have these, but the allegations in this situation with this farmer, and I think the way of which it all unfolded, the allegations. Now, I mean, nothing's been, and I understand again the one of wanting to have well-being of the farmer with his family, saying, "Look, I just want to be able to know that he's okay." But also, I mean, the whole justice system in the United States versus elsewhere around the world. I mean, these allegations coming in of involved in attempting to arrange the assassination of the Ukrainian Minister of Agrarian Policy and Food. I mean, that's a large allegation against a high-profile individual within the Ukrainian government is how I'm putting this together. And over there, so I hope State Department obviously needs to be involved with the embassies over there. You've got our delegation because that's how this whole conduit stuff works. But if you have not, go to KFGO.com. You can check out some of the latest there. It's just unusual. Unbelievable is what, quite frankly, it is. Get you a weather update from Tom Szymanski. Well, lighten the mood up. I get it. It's one of those weeks yesterday I was joking around that, it's a holiday week. Yeah, you got Thursday. Some have Friday. We'll be with you on Friday. We're talking UND Minnesota Gophers hockey. We'll be telling you all about that rivalry set up in Grand Forks. Be a busy weekend in the area for that on top of the travel just for the holiday. We'll come back and chat a little bit more about that. I want to ask you about holiday employment when it comes to maybe doing that extra job for the holidays, the seasonal work, because I think there's been a lot of businesses in the retail and in the delivery aspect that have relied on some of those, just seasonal workers. Look, we only need the help from October through the end of December because there's a lot more people out there purchasing. There's a lot more people ordering, and we need some help. With everything that's been going on workforce shortage-wise, I can only imagine the struggle for those delivery drivers, for those that are supposed to be helping out at retail stores, for those that are helping out at hospitality. That's not going to be resolved overnight. I'm curious, though, did you ever do one of those jobs? Or if you work in one now, are you struggling as much as what I anticipate you are to find that much needed help during the busy holiday season? We'll have that conversation after this KFGO weather update. Stick around.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm KFGO Chief Meteorologist Too Tall Tom Szymanski. Overnight tonight, clouds will triumphantly return. Overnight low 27, so not that cold for the time of year. The wind will pivot around to the north as the cold front moves on through and pick up to about 9 to 22. Much colder tomorrow. Windy, cloudy. Hit is flurries. Now, as you go further west and northwest, Devil's Lake, Mesa, maybe the Pembina Gorge area, and southwestward through the middle and western portion of North Dakota, there might be a minor dusting of snow, but the system will lose energy and moisture as it moves eastward, so what we have locally here would be just a few scattered flurries. I think in the morning will be around 30, then steadier falling temperature. In fact, I do think by mid-afternoon, we have a legitimate chance of being pretty close to 20, if not down into the teens. North winds, quite noticeable, 16 to 36 and gusty. Thanksgiving, we start off chilly. The hockey stick, otherwise known as 7. Mostly sunny with a high temperature right around 22. And then Friday, partly sunny and breezy. We start at 14 right around midnight, then slowly rising. Friday's high right around 38. A couple computer models are trying to paint out a little bit of light snow here and there. I think that would be mainly in northern Minnesota, if even there. And then Saturday and Sunday, partly sunny, 38 to 43. I don't see any big travel issues for the weekend. Might be some minor precip in a couple of spots on Saturday, but I'm not totally convinced of that yet. And even if it does occur, it will not impact travel. So by and large, the weather looks pretty good for the holiday into Thanksgiving and also on return travel.
Currently 48 degrees in KFGO studios. More afternoons live with Tyler Axness coming up. Ready for this.
64 years into the terrifying future.
almost 7 minutes removed from the top of the hour. I'm looking at the text club, and I realize that I had missed some of your thoughts earlier on when we were talking about this, the 50 million barrels of oil. Now, I keep wanting to emphasize the 50 million on the domestic side here, but there's also the other developments of what you're going to have like or similar actions that is, quote, in parallel from China, India, Japan, South Korea, and Britain. Why that's important is because it's about applying pressure to OPEC. And that's what I hope your takeaway was. That if you miss our conversation with Heidi Heitkamp, you can check that out wherever you get your podcast, but certainly KFGO.com is one of those places as well. But people are really upset about for Governor Burgum's response. Here's some of the thoughts. Tyler, Governor Burgum is criticizing the president for releasing this oil. It'll help as much as reducing North Dakota's state income tax. Others are claiming that so Burgum needs to be called a liar for saying that this is the Biden's fault. The thing that has been easy to do, and I've been seeing it for a variety of things, and I've made this argument, and it didn't just start with a Biden administration. It didn't start with the Trump administration. When we talk about some of the pricing of things, it's easy to, one, if it's good for the party of that individual, take credit. And then on the flip side, if things are going negatively, it's easy to say, well, look, it's all their fault. The thing that is neglected through here, and we've had economists on this very show, and I assure you, economists that likely don't have the same, political voting leanings that I do, pointing out saying, yes, this is transitionary. We're transitioning out of a global pandemic, which things came to a screeching halt. Bottlenecks haven't been resolved, even with some of the minor critiquing of things that were done. Opening a port 24/7, yep, sounds great, but you have to have the workers, and we've had the conversations with those workers of going out there, picking up the product, and then bringing it to stock the shelves wherever you're listening to me on KFGO. Those bottlenecks are still there. The workforce of which you've got people retire, take early retirement. The fact that you had people looking at, kind of where their situation was personally, now that you had those month after month after month of either having to adjust how you worked or think about whether or not this is the job you want to continue to do, those have not, they have not worked themselves out. Now, I think one of the underlying things as to why you have the prices increasing for a variety of topics is a combination of all that. Yes, the cost of energy is a factor when you're trying to talk about moving products. The cost of labor. We're increasing what we're paying people. And I think that's an okay thing. But that also goes into the cost of this, moving it from the port to wherever it is. All those factors weren't just brought on by a public policy decision from this particular administration. It has been a global impact from a pandemic that stopped everything dead in its tracks. Yeah, and I'm just as mad as you are that it's taken time and longer to get and claw ourselves out and to have things go back to, quote, normal, including the price of goods. But if it's a transition, that doesn't mean it's a transition of 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years. I hope it happens a little bit more quickly, but those factors are what we need to add into this conversation. We'll do that next hour.
It belongs to a creature from outer space. From outer space.
Gotta get my hair. Oh god. It's just cheese and noodles. Alright, I'm getting on my soapbox. It's just cheese and noodles. It's not that good. Let's be honest, guys. Everybody's probably here, a little lactose, so it messes up our stomachs. And we gotta get it off the table. It's probably one of the most overrated dishes. But my favorite is dressing. I do love dressing. So, but get macaroni and cheese off the table, and it'd be a much better Thanksgiving for everybody in the house.
It belongs to a creature from outer space.
No.
It belongs to a creature from outer space.
Afternoons live now 2 to 5 weekdays here on KFGO. Got another hour with you. I'll get you that 5 o'clock punch out. We are going to check in with Amy and JJ. What of that? It Takes Two. They're going to be downtown Fargo. There's going to be a Christmas tree lighting going on sometime within the next hour or so. So we'll check in with him, give you all the details of where you can check that out for yourself as well. Side dishes on mac. I just found something. I'm not a big New England Patriots fan in the first place, but their outside linebacker just had a hot take on what should be as a side dish and what should absolutely not be. Got some thoughts on that. Mac and cheese being one of them. So we'll have that conversation. Anything else this last hour you want to get off your chest? I'm here for you. Some people talking about the way management is scheduled in some of the big box stores. Some people asking about the local butchers. We'll get it all out together. You can join the conversation anyway. You can also tweet at me at Tyler Axness on the Twitter machine. But in the meantime, I got to get you caught up with KFGO News. Paul Jurgens, take it away.
KFGO News, partly sunny and 47. I'm Paul Jurgens. Security will be modified for this year's Xcel Energy Holiday Lights Parade in Fargo-Moorhead. Downtown Community Partnership Executive Director Cindy Graffio says adjustments were made in light of the events that happened in Wisconsin, where 5 people were killed and dozens were injured by an SUV that sped through a Christmas parade in suburban Milwaukee. Additional dump trucks and snowplows may be used as barricades to help keep the parade route more secure. Spectator locations on the center NP Avenue Bridge will be restricted. People watching the parade on the bridge will be asked to do so on the sidewalk. Raffio says the changes were made after discussions with Fargo and Moorhead police and first responders. The parade is set for Saturday, December 4th at 6:30. The State Patrol says a St. Paul man was the person killed in a car pickup collision near Thief River Falls early yesterday morning on Highway 59. Killed was 49-year-old Sean Valentine. Valentine was driving a small car when he crossed the center line and crashed into the pickup. 2 people in the pickup were hurt. Both were taken to Sanford Medical Center in Thief River Falls. There'll be extra security or law enforcement once again this holiday season in Minnesota looking for impaired drivers. Amanda Albrecht is recounting how her family's life changed since Thanksgiving 2006 when her sister was killed after driving drunk.
With the holidays coming up, there will be a lot of parties happening. There are so many options to get home safe these days. Please don't take a chance. And please, if you see someone trying to leave after they've been drinking, please stop them. You could save lives.
Briana Albrecht was weeks shy of her 20th birthday when she was killed in a drunken driving crash near Lake Elmo. She was going around 100 miles an hour, not wearing her seatbelt and texting at the time. A federal judge is ordering a Becker, Minnesota farmer to pay nearly $1.5 million in restitution for defrauding the USDA on loans. 67-year-old Robert Anderson was also sentenced to 3 years of probation and community service. The U.S. Attorney's Office says Anderson used false statements to get loans by pledging to maintain bushels of corn as collateral. The Farm Service Agency later discovered Anderson's corn bins were nearly empty and that he sold the corn under a relative's name to avoid detection. Anderson pleaded guilty. Fargo-Moorhead, increasing clouds late this afternoon and tonight. We expect an overnight low of about 27 degrees. Cloudy, windy tomorrow, scattered flurries. A high likely in the morning of about 30. North wind tomorrow, 16 to 36 and gusty. 22, the high on Thanksgiving Day, mostly sunny. Partly sunny Friday, 38. Partly sunny and 47. Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
All right, here's something that's making trending right now nationally. As people are obviously in the Thanksgiving mindset because either you're way behind in getting your stuff prepared or you've got just limited hours to get those side dishes. If it's too late for the turkey at this point, right? If it's too big, too late if you haven't already defrosted.
But we should throw out the PSA that everybody forgets this time of year, and that is off sales are closed in every state in the region on Thanksgiving. So get that done today or tomorrow.
So here's my question, because off sales are closed, but the establishment itself, the bar can be open.
Bars
right?
can be open on Thanksgiving Day. Yes. But off
why?
sales closed completely.
Why?
That lobby, I think, is born from the hotels that wanted people to be able to go into their bars and watch football on Thanksgiving.
That makes sense.
Yep.
That does. All right. Because if you can do one, why could you do the other?
Yep. I believe that was the origin of it was that lobby. So
plan
get
ahead.
it taken care of today or tomorrow, because you won't get it on Thursday.
No.
And you can't go stock up late night on Thursday when you run out, because Thanksgiving's extra wild.
Extra wild. Oh, yeah. Okay. I was like, wait a minute. I was reading about what I wanted to share with you now. So fill the liquor cabinet and the beer fridge up is what Eric Johnson, former bartender.
And off-sale employee.
And off-sale. Yeah. You did kind of do it all.
Yeah, well, it's a small staff over there at Chubb's Pub, so we all kind of do everything.
Which, free plug, I see that at 7 p.m. on Thanksgiving night, they're going to be open. All right, everybody gets one. But if you're hosting Thanksgiving, it's probably, do you stress out over the sides? Or, I mean, it takes a village. So
are you
side.
the family that everybody brings something, or is one person in charge of basically everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's evolved over the year. Now it's everybody just brings something. No, why have the stress all be on like the host, right? Because I mean, they're probably already stressed enough because you've got dozens of people coming to your home.
Yeah.
Or you're in charge of the organization of it all. So, yes, everybody brings something. Here's something that this Matthew Judon, who is the outside linebacker for the New England Patriots. So keep that in mind. But he was talking about something that should not absolutely, in his mind, be a side dish. And I need to get your thought on this. Take a listen here.
We gotta get macaroni and cheese on the table. All right, guys. It's just cheese and noodles. All right, I'm getting on my soap opera. It's just cheese and noodles, and it's not that good. Let's be honest, guys. Everybody's probably here. It's a little lactose, so it messes up our stomachs. And we gotta get it off the table. It's probably one of the most overrated dishes. But my favorite is dressing. I do love dressing. So, but get macaroni and cheese off the table, and it'll be a much better Thanksgiving for everybody in the house.
Just cheese and noodles. Not that good.
Yeah,
perhaps the most overrated.
Yeah, he's just wrong.
I mean, you got to put macaroni and cheese in your top 5 comfort foods of all time.
Exactly. And I would contend that if he's only having cheese and noodles, he's not getting a very good mac and cheese.
Yeah. Who prepared just the cheese and noodles for you? I mean, you got to add some of the other dairy products, which apparently maybe he's got an issue with.
Yeah, but if your experience is limited to boxed mac and cheese, then I can understand that take.
There are some very good boxed mac and cheese, though.
Right. But if you've had genuine homemade real cheese sauce mac and cheese, you're never going to have that take.
But here's my question, because I don't recall really seeing mac and cheese as a side very often in the Midwest. Do you?
No.
And is this a regional thing?
Yeah, I think it may be more of a southern thing. I feel like that's a strong side dish in a lot of southern barbecue spots.
That's for sure, because I told you about my time in Tennessee, right?
Right.
Stupid. I mean, there was a lot of things I did on that trip that were really stupid, but challenging myself to have the mac and cheese as the side, if it were, in fact, on the menu at every place, and every place had mac and cheese as one of their side dishes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's maybe save room for the meat next time.
Well, I did. I had all of the above. I said the side dish. I had the side of mac and cheese every time, which is what the conversation is here. Because there's nobody. If you have macaroni and cheese as a side dish for your Thanksgiving here in the upper Midwest, Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, I want to hear from you. 35270, because I don't think it's very common. Now, dressing is stuffing, right? When he's talking about, hey, I like dressing. Those are interchangeable?
I believe that it would be a regional term for the same thing. I don't know.
How do you claim that mac and cheese is overrated? Top 5 comfort food of all time.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough case. I mean, hey, if it screws with your systems, if you got a little lactose intolerance, yeah. but don't speak for the rest of us that
ruin
don't
it
deal
for the
with
rest
that.
of the family and friends.
Those of us with Northern European ancestry that can handle a little lactose in our diet happen to love it.
I know people that have lactose issues, and they're still not skipping on the mac and cheese.
Right. It's one of those ones that might be worth it.
Yeah, like, okay, well, this is going to suck for me for a little bit, but you know what? For that moment, once you got that creamy goodness, it's not just cheese and noodles, as the New England Patriots I'm going to keep saying the New England Patriots linebacker, because that should add some weight to why you should be outraged by this. It's not overrated. It's not just noodles and cheese. Do I expect it to be a side of Thanksgiving? No. If I saw it there, I would absolutely dive in and have that as a side.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe we're opening some doors for some new family traditions with that being a side dish, because that's a side dish that's gonna please almost everybody in your household.
Every age group. If you have the palate of an Eric Johnson that's really about that age of 3 and 4,
yeah, you're gonna love it.
Yeah, like, okay, now you can actually enjoy Thanksgiving because you don't like anything else that's on the table, do you?
Not a lot. No, not a lot. I'm mashed potato heavy on Thanksgiving.
Mashed potatoes. And are you one that will go and, okay, well, I'll take one of those buns and throw some peanut butter on it?
But maybe just regular butter, but yeah, for sure. I'm second helping of whatever dinner roll is with the Thanksgiving dinner.
See, but mac and cheese, save your palate.
There you go.
Tyler, stuffing is made in the turkey. Dressing is baked outside the turkey. Is that true? I mean, I get it. Like, it's the stuffing stuffed in the turkey. I mean, that does make sense on face value. But is that really the difference? Because I think we always say, give me a side of stuffing. But we have never made it inside the turkey. So, I mean, is that necessity? Is that a requirement when you're talking about stuffing that it was, in fact? There's more messages coming in about mac
I
and
don't
cheese.
think, I'm guessing that's where the terms came from, but
Right.
I think we have gotten to the
Times
point
have
where
evolved.
it's either or.
Tyler, I grew up with boxed mac and cheese. It has just been the last couple of years watching mac and cheese grow. Still does not replace the green bean casserole. Okay, let me get on my soapbox. Green bean casserole, don't bother. Not with me. Well, clearly not with Eric, who wants a piece of bread and mashed potatoes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Do you
don't
put
even
gravy,
trouble.
gravy at least on the mashed potatoes?
Yeah, I can do mashed potatoes with just a little butter and salt and pepper, or maybe a little bit of gravy.
Boy.
Yeah, listen. Traditional Midwest holiday foods are like just not in my wheelhouse, and so I get
Pizza,
a bad
cheeseburger.
reputation because of that, and I will accept it. But I also like sushi and Mexican food and Italian food. And Chinese food. Like I do dabble a little outside. I just don't like traditional Scandinavian
This got
holiday
real personal
foods.
about you and your palate. Let's move on. Mac and cheese, does it belong on the table for Thanksgiving? New England Patriots linebacker says no. I say sure, why not? I would dabble all day long on the top 5 comfort food. Tell you what we're going to do. We're taking a quick break. When we come back, we're heading downtown. You got Amy and JJ down. There's going to be a Christmas tree lighting. They're going to tell you all about that next.
No.
It belongs to a creature from outer space.
I've got mixed feelings about this, but it makes perfect sense because it is going to look a lot like Christmas down at the Broadway Square, which is where we're going to connect with Amy Eiler and JJ Gordon, that It Takes Two duo. Amy, how's it going down there?
Hey, it's a beautiful night in downtown Fargo. You guys, it is just, they ordered the weather for this night. I'm telling you, Kylie actually ordered it from Jasper's, and she was right on the money. She got the order right because it is beautiful. You'll probably hear the sounds of some Christmas carols happening behind me. That is NDSU, who is here. NDSU Music is here to perform tonight. We're at the Broadway Square, and it's all about lighting this big tree and celebrating Christmas in downtown Fargo.
Big is right, Amy. It's a 32-foot tall Christmas tree. And when this thing lights up, the whole downtown area is going to light up absolutely in a moment.
And, the Shields Arena is going to be open November 24th to the public. And they're going to have regular hours Monday through Friday, 4 to 9 p.m., Saturday, Sunday from noon to 9 p.m., weather permitting. But you guys are all familiar with this. We got to know this skating rink last year, and you all love it. Oh, Santa's reindeer are here, too. We can't miss.
Yeah, in fact, I got to watch them. They eat potatoes and carrots. I got to watch them eat. I was like living a dream.
So bring the kids down here. It's a fun experience. And right beside the tree is where we're sitting right now. Kylie is with us from Jasper's, and we're sitting in these new, are we calling them like little chalets? What are we calling them? They're called Ice House Chalets. I love it. Okay, the new Ice House Chalets. Tell us all about these. So these Ice House Chalets are a experience that you can rent on our patio at Jasper Hotel. Drinks are available, light appetizers, and reservations will be going live next week. We're super excited. I love it. Okay, so how can people reserve them? They're going to see them tonight and be like, yes, get me in one of those. These will be the place to be all of the holiday season, I'm telling you. They will be available via Open Table. Just follow us on our website, check our social. We'll be getting some sneak peek details on those reservations and more to come on how to book your private chalet.
You definitely want to get that Open Table app. You can score points. It's no big deal, but I've been doing it for years. And I got to tell you, I can envision myself shopping in downtown, reserving one of these, meeting up with friends, and just having sort of this holiday magic.
If you want to kick off the holiday season, tonight is the perfect night to do so in Broadway Square. Stop by Jasper's. Even if you're not going to be sitting in one of these chalets, the dining room is open. The bar is open. Yes, we're serving our signature hot chocolate. Samples available in the Broadway Square warming hut. So come get your free sample. And then inside, we've actually opened up our terrace for people to get an aerial view of the tree. And hot chocolate and drinks are available for purchase. And we have a lovely lady playing piano from 4 to 8 in our lobby lounge. Oh, great. Okay, come and check it out. And then the 9's just open too. I was just there on Saturday because I couldn't wait more than 48 hours after they opened their door to be down here.
It's the tree lighting ceremony taking place at Broadway Square tonight. Come on down to downtown Fargo. Amy and I found parking right next door. You will too. Check out these ice chalets and make your reservation, make your plans right now. You're going to be with your family this weekend, and so coordinate. Don't wait and be like, is Aunt Linda going to be here on what day? I don't know. No, coordinate. Pick a date, and she'll be there. I promise you.
And come and visit us downtown here. Thanks, Tyler. Thanks, Eric. Check back in with us in a little bit.
We will do that. You keep that phone handy. Amy Eiler and JJ Gordon downtown. Again, it's going to be the Christmas tree lighting Broadway Square. 5 o'clock is when the event begins, but you just heard, get on down. Jasper's down there, have a little bit of fun along with It Takes Two. And you're going to have music provided by NDSU, the lighting of our 32-foot tall Christmas tree, and this choreographed skating performances at the Shield Skating Rink, the Skate Shack, and all that is going to be available again through the public beginning tomorrow, November 24th, the Shields Skating. If you have not been to the Broadway Square in downtown Fargo, it is fantastic. I mean, we have Erica Rapp from Fargo Underground on every Friday, brought to you by the Boiler Room, talking about, when we have the fall markets and the change that this square down on Broadway has brought to that event, and just the dynamics of what the outdoor activities are. Of course, everything's weather permitting, today included. But, and I'm looking at the forecast right now. Yeah, it's one of those beautiful early winter days. So you can get on down there. Weather is not a factor. Parking, not a factor. If you want to learn more about all of this going on, the FargoBroadwaySquare.com is certainly a place you can go, whether it's for this event coming up tonight, any other outdoor activities they may have seasonally, because you know what, we don't shy away from the outdoors during the winter up here at all either. But tonight you're all invited. 5 o'clock is when they're going to light that tree. So plan accordingly. You got about 33 minutes, give or take, and you can take us with you downtown Fargo. Again, Amy and JJ down there. Appreciate them doing a check-in. Messages in about what side dish you absolutely despise at Thanksgiving. We'll share them. Which is the one that you just skip over every time? The green bean casserole for me, that was coming saying, yeah, you still can't replace that. Yeah, I can replace that with mac and cheese. Others talking about other sides that I think are traditional staples, but they just forego. We'll talk about that and more. Final half hour of Afternoons Live on a Tuesday afternoon, rolling on. You got locked into 790 AM and 104.7 FM, KFGO.
KFGO News, Fargo-Moorhead, 46 degrees. I'm Paul Juergens. Governor Tim Walz says COVID cases continue to rise in Minnesota. Walz, speaking in Hennepin County Medical Center, says healthcare workers have been pushed to the limit.
Listening to the folks upstairs, I asked point blank, you've been at this for 20 months, how does it feel now? And without a doubt, every one of them said it's worse now than it's been. It's harder on us now than it's been. The people who are here are sicker than they've been, and the pressure and the wear and tear on the staff is as bad as it's been.
Walz has activated the National Guard to form skilled nursing response teams to provide support to long-term care centers with employee shortages. Walz also wants to spend $50 million in federal COVID money to hire and retain staff. Governor Burgum is criticizing President Biden after the president announced that the Department of Energy released 50 million barrels of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to help lower gas prices and improve supply-demand issues. Burgum says the decision is baffling. He says executive actions taken by the administration have done nothing but put up roadblocks for the domestic oil industry to recover to pre-pandemic levels. 46 and partly cloudy. This is KFGO News. .46 of partly cloudy sky. This is KFGO News. Reported income by all North Dakota residents and the number of filers dropped last year, largely due to the pandemic. State Tax Department figures show the reported gross income by North Dakotans dropped by 8.4% last year, while the number of filers dropped by more than 18,000 from the year before. The average adjusted gross income in the state dropped from about $66,000 in 2019 to around $63,000 last year. The top Republican in the Minnesota Senate says he's willing to postpone a debate over the confirmation of Health Commissioner Jan Malcolm to help break the stalemate over a special session. Majority Leader Jeremy Miller says if Democrats agree to discuss Republican proposals on coronavirus, he would drop threats to remove Malcolm from office. A Minneapolis bank that was badly damaged during protests and rioting over the death of George Floyd is giving the property to a nonprofit developer to build affordable housing, commercial space, and a home for cultural organizations. The U.S. Bank site is part of the Lake Street commercial neighborhood that became the target of vandalism and arson. The multi-million-dollar project will feature businesses led by minorities. Community organizations will own portions of the development. Due to COVID, no food actually touched the floor of the Fargo Dome for a second consecutive year as the Fill the Dome food drive wrapped up. Instead, high school students work to collect food at their schools and bring in monetary donations. Great Plains Food Bank will distribute the food throughout the region. Great Plains Food CEO Melissa Sobolik.
The community has been really, really incredibly supportive from the first year of Fill the Dome all the way to this year. They see it as a signature event and sort of a tradition, and everyone knows it's Fill the Dome week. And when they go to Hornbacher's, they know to purchase those bags, and they know that they can donate and make a difference. They see that they can help our students succeed.
Sobolik says the need has gone up significantly during the pandemic. This year, Fill the Dome set a new record with 25 tons of food. Fargo-Moorhead increasing clouds tonight and about 27 for the overnight low. Tomorrow, scattered flurries, cloudy, strong north wind, a high in the morning of about 30 and then steady falling temperatures. Thanksgiving, mostly sunny, 22 in the afternoon. 38 partly sunny Friday. Saturday, Sunday, partly sunny, 38 to 43. Fargo-Moorhead, partly cloudy. Again, it is 46 degrees. Paul Juergens, News Radio KFGO.
All right, so this New England Patriots linebacker, outside linebacker, that's a mac and cheese hater. Because it's not just for things. The way he described it, he absolutely hates mac and cheese, and this is a top 5 comfort food for a lot of people. Except for this person, mac and cheese, no. This one intrigues me, and I want to dive in a little bit more. Tyler, I hate mashed potatoes. Ever since a toddler, I'm 50. People think I'm odd. Well, if we're talking about ratings of food, I mean, the presentation of potatoes is very versatile. Potatoes have got to be one of the most versatile food items out there because you can mash it, you can bake it twice, You can fry it up in a variety of different ways. I mean, the whole variety of how you can fry a potato, from a regular fry to a beer battered fry to a waffle to a tater tot, which has got to be towards the top of your potato making list. I would put mashed potatoes towards the bottom of my potato preparation and enjoyment. I mean, I'm not going to avoid it, but I put that towards the bottom. I start twice baked. I think it's got to be the best. It's probably the most work. Twice baked potato.
That's
Tater
an interesting top choice. Twice baked.
Twice baked's good, man.
All right.
If you had a tray of twice baked, you avoiding?
No.
Yeah. See,
no, of course not.
You're just a meat and potato guy. So twice baked, if not 1, 2. Is it possible to overindulge? Because I instantly would be a tater tot guy, but I think I've overdone tater tots.
Really? Okay. So I think maybe you just need a little distance to make your heart grow fonder.
Sure. Yeah, that's what it is. More messages coming in about what side you avoid during the Thanksgiving or the holidays in general. We'll continue with that conversation. I got to get you caught up with CBS and National News. Final half hour underway. I have a laid-back Tuesday edition of Afternoons Live. Stick around. In a few moments, we'll check back in with Amy and JJ there down at the Broadway Square. Christmas tree lighting 19 minutes from now, so you can get on down there. Take us with you. And in fact, you can visit with Amy and JJ, who are down on location. They'll give you an update here in just a few minutes. I think this is a fair question. And I'll own it, and I'll provide my reasoning. And had she been sitting in the same room with me, I don't think she would dispute this. Tyler, are you a cook, or have you just taken advantage of all the great cooks in your family? Oh, yeah, I'm totally spoiled in a variety of aspects of my life. This person goes on, my mom has always been the best. Yeah, I've been spoiled completely. So, when I move on out to college, aside from the holidays, of course, I learned to cook. I learned to cook a little bit, but here's the thing. She moves in, and she is the master of the kitchen now. And it's almost like, you know what? Even if I want to just dabble a little bit, and whatever it is, I find that, all of a sudden, utensils are being moved around. Things are happening because she wants to be doing the cooking. And great cook, but it's depleted my ability to be an artist in the kitchen myself.
Okay.
Is that uncommon?
I don't think so.
I'm not upset about it. I mean, by all means.
Right. And I think cooking is one of those, you've got to constantly hone your skills.
So the rust accumulates if you're not out there.
Yeah. I think there's space for some delegation of duties, right? Where
now this feels like I'm going to be walking into a trap of getting myself in trouble when you're starting delegation of duties.
No, I do. I think there are things that everyone in a household does better, worse.
I do the grilling. Right. I do the grilling. Okay, there. It makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you just pick that one side dish that you want to really master.
Mac and cheese.
There you go. Maybe that's your thing.
That's the one. Okay, I'll get the mac and cheese. The air fryer, you can put me in front of that thing. No problem.
You can fill up a basket and set it
if that thing comes with the little instructions on the back of the red bag of potatoes, probably tater tots, I can make that work. And I can get them to a golden crisp.
Just don't get them too hot.
Don't get them too hot. You'll burn your face.
But yeah, I'm drifting into a similar situation too, where less and less do you have to fend for yourself in the kitchen.
Yep, I will go provide what needs to be cooked. I'll make the run. You better make the list for me.
Yep.
And if it's brand specific, please provide that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I've been spoiled, but it's because of that. Whatever minimal skill I had, yes, whatever it is depleting as the years go on and on, except for behind the grill. Tyler, allow her to let you experiment with venison, ducks, or pheasant. The pheasant, here's what you got to do with the pheasant. You got to cut that baby up. You got to wrap her in bacon. And this is the only time you're probably going to want to have, is it the George Foreman grill? That's the one that used to compress down. I think it was the Foreman grill. You got those things up while we're tailgating for an NDSU game. People coming around for that. So that's what you got to do. I can give you the recipe on that one. The venison, yeah. And there's the thing. The more I get involved with this too, venison's becoming more just the deer sausage. So, I mean, that's kind of already taken care of itself by the time it gets to my responsibility to cook anything. We'll continue the conversation. But you're right. As far as, I'm spoiled. I'm taking advantage of the easiness I've had growing up. Here's what's easy for you to do. Plan on getting onto downtown Broadway because there's going to be a tree lighting in about 15 minutes approximate time. We're going to check back in with It Takes Two, who is live on location in downtown. How's it going, crew?
Hey, guys. Yes, and actually we just got a sneak peek. We saw a testing of the tree lighting to make sure it was good.
Yeah, I think it looks like it's Gate City Bank blue if I'm going to throw something out there. But to be honest, I am too busy working on this cocktail right now, Andy.
Yeah, we're sitting out here in the little ice house chalet at Jasper's, and Kylie has been with us because they are making sure that you have a great experience if you head on down to downtown Fargo. Not only are you going to get the tree lighting and NDSU music and Santa's reindeer and a whole experience, but you can stop by Jasper's to have some hot cocoa and listen to some piano.
Yeah, we have Girl with a Piano playing in our lobby up until 8 o'clock tonight. Our terrace is open to the public, so you can get a sneak peek aerial view of the Christmas tree. And it's just a fun night all around. Our terrace and ballroom are available for last-minute holiday party bookings, too. So if you don't have plans, hit us up. We're here for you. Love it. You could come tonight and just check it out. You could do like the once over, like, do we want this for our holiday party? And then you'll think, yes, 100%.
I also want to throw this out there. A lot of people have family coming in over the holidays, and I'm not just talking about Thanksgiving and Christmas. There's all the visiting that takes place during this time, and Jasper's is a great opportunity. It's brand spanking new, so you know you're going to get the best of the best, and they've actually curated these rooms. In fact, you can go back and listen to a great interview Amy and I have at KFGO.com talking about how these rooms are unlike your typical stay.
It's a good podcast, actually. We recommend. All of our podcasts are at KFGO.com. But come on down, see the skating rink. That is getting going. The tree lighting, it's getting a little bit dark out. It gets dark so early, which is perfect, though, because you can bring the whole family and enjoy it. It's a night where you can bundle up and still be warm. So that's really nice. The weather is just perfect for a night out in downtown Fargo.
By the way, if you're asking yourself, are these ice chalets actually warm enough? Well, we had to kick open the door because it got so warm inside of here. So, yes, they are absolutely warm enough when you take a rental on these.
Yeah, and when you come down and see these, we're going to have more information about them next week. Kylie said you're going to be able to reserve them starting next week. Open table. Download the app if you don't already have it so you can get ready for that. But we'll give you more details on that next week. But it's just going to be a great night in downtown Fargo. I already see lots of families out, so come on out, get that sample of hot chocolate, and enjoy being outside for a little while when it's not, blowing wind and 20 below.
It's the perfect weather to take a Christmas card photo tonight, folks.
There you go. If you don't have that checked off your list, get that done. Amy and JJ broadcasting live from downtown Fargo. We went from Ormond, North Dakota to downtown Fargo all in a matter of hours. We're planning on being in Grand Forks by 10 o'clock today.
We'll see you in Winnipeg tomorrow morning, folks.
Thanks, guys.
See you later, Tyler. Thanks so much.
Amy Heiler, JJ Gordon. They've been, I think, perfect attendance, as we like to say in the biz, from the morning crew, the news and views, their show, now ours. So we'll see what the Drive Time Noon has in store for It Takes Two as well. They are downtown Fargo. You're all welcome to get down there. The lighting of that tree happening at 5 o'clock approximately. They'll wait till you get on down there, but you got to get the plans made, get that parking space, which parking not an issue anymore in downtown Fargo. The weather accommodating. In fact, hear from the tall man himself, Too Tall Tom Szymanski's last forecast for this show. We'll see what's coming up on the Drive Time News with Derek Hansen next.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm KFGO Chief Meteorologist Too Tall Tom Szymanski. Overnight tonight, clouds will triumphantly return. Overnight lows 27, so not that cold for the time of year. The wind will pivot around to the north as the cold front moves on through and pick up to about 9 to 22. Much colder tomorrow, windy, cloudy, hit and miss, blurry. Now, as you go further west and northwest, Devil's Lake Bay, maybe the Pembina area, and southwestward, middle and western portion of North Dakota, there might be a minor eruption of snow, but this is quite good. So we have local areas, scattered leftover flurry. I think in the morning will be around 30, then steady or fall temperature. In fact, I do think by mid-afternoon, north winds quite noticeable, 16 to 36 and gusting. Thanksgiving, we start off chilly. The hockey stick, otherwise known as 7. Mostly sunny with a high temperature right around 22. But then Friday, partly sunny and breezy. We start at 14, right around midnight. Then we rise on Friday night, right around 38. I'll read a lot of the trend pick up a little bit of light snow here and there. I think that would be easy in northern Minnesota if even there. And then Saturday and Sunday, partly sunny, 38 to 42. Minor precip in a couple of spots on Saturday, but I'm not hoping to that yet. And even if it does occur, it will not impact travel. So by and large, weather looks pretty good for the holiday into Thanksgiving and also on the return trip.
Currently 45 degrees at the KFGO Studios. Final segment of Afternoons live with Tyler Axness coming up right after this.
Derek Hansen's entered the KFGO studio, again sponsored by the Detroit Lakes Outlet Recreation Store. This Blackfish Friday is going to be taking place, again, on Black Friday. It's a Blackfish sale for all those ice castles, all that going on. Yeah. Get on down there this Friday.
Still got to get my ice castle loaned out to the cousins for deer hunting, so I haven't gotten that back yet.
Oh.
Should be one piece. They're pretty good about it.
Are they?
Usually.
Where do they? I suppose you don't want to.
Not too far from where. Yeah, here it is, and I don't know if it's locked up.
This is the location of the mobile man cave.
I think half of Barnesville knows, but
throwing all the empties in there.
They could figure it out.
Yeah.
Of course, when I say cousins around where I live, that's not a exclusive group.
No, isn't that funny how growing up where we all did? There's the relations are everywhere.
Yes, exactly. Especially when you have parents who are from the same town who got married. So then you're dealing with both sides of the family.
Right.
It's not like. But, boy, there's more and more new couples.
Yeah, you had to look at the family tree before asking someone to go to the snowball dance.
Well, have a funny story about that one time. No,
I got time.
Honestly, a girl that we were talking about going to homecoming, I didn't know that we were second cousins. I had no idea. So it didn't happen. Well, my parents told me, so we didn't know.
You know that's your cousin, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, no, I didn't.
So then, were you tasked with having to go tell her?
No, it was through a friend. Well, it's a much more complicated story than when I'm just giving you the Cliff Notes version, okay? Trust me on this.
This was all on the little notepad note from high school.
No, it was.
So here's the deal, Jennifer.
It was more of someone said that she wanted to go to homecoming. I'm like, oh, okay, and whatever. I go home for dinner that night, and it just got brought up. I didn't even bring it up to them. I'm eating. He goes, oh, did you know that she's your second cousin? I don't spit my food out. So I called my friend and said, I'm not going to homecoming with this person. So, yeah.
Oh, I'm glad we walked into that conversation. Yeah. What's coming up on the Drive Time News?
Well, we'll obviously get you up today. What happened today on Wall Street? Sports with Matt English. Now that you know that the Timberwolves are on the station.
Oh yeah,
they're winning.
Have the NBA on
they're
KFGO
actually
now.
playing. Yeah, they're. We got them back, and now they're winning. So it's a pretty good deal. So. They won 3 in a row now. Going to go for 4 in a row tomorrow night here on KFGO after Hennessy on Hockey.
A couple weeks ago, we were saying, you know what, the Wild are the best team of Minneapolis. Now the Wolves are kind of creeping in. Vikings. Now all of a sudden it feels okay to be a Minnesota fan, huh?
Why did you jinx that? I mean, why? Why'd you go down that road?
I've got no dog in this fight.
And on a somber note, we might play a few clips. Happy heavenly birthday to Bob Harris. So I just thought about that a lot today. So might do that later in the show before we head to Couch Potato Radio. And if we don't get to it in the 5 o'clock, obviously it's 6 o'clock.
Yeah, good reminder of that. Yeah, Bob Harris' birthday today. That's coming up on the Drive Time News. Later on, you got a lot more KFGO programming along this weekend. Also, UND hockey going to be over these airwaves. We got some programming notes for you for Friday, but I'll tell you about that tomorrow because that's it for me today. I'm Tyler Axness, your host here on Afternoons Live. I'll be back tomorrow for more of the show. Get on down to the Broadway Square, that Christmas tree lighting up in just a few minutes. You still got time. Till then, you take care of yourselves. I'll check in tomorrow right here on 790 AM and 104.7 FM, KFGO.